Well, why didn't you?
Because I said, well, do you want me to come over? And he's like, no, we'll be done by the time you get here.
Yeah, you're not much of a team player, Baron.
You ready? Okay, I'm going to call to order the Northampton County Council Budget Meeting, November 9th. Is there any courtesy of the floor?
Yeah, I had a
Yes,
quick
sir.
question. Linda, have we received the Q3 unaudited yet?
No.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Any other courtesy of the floor? Okay, we'll begin with the Public Works Program on page 137. Do you have an opening statement, or are you just going to answer questions? Do you have anything you want to say to us up front?
Sure, just good afternoon. Just wanted to introduce my staff that's here tonight. Brian Cope, Parks and Rec Superintendent, Landon Parker, Bridge Superintendent, Serena Davis, our Environmental Services Coordinator, and Andrew Elliott, Deputy Director.
Okay. Start on page 138. Is that both books? Program summary? How did that line up? That's amazing. 138, 139, on both books.
Just a general question on the overall summary. It looks like we're looking at a significant increase in intergovernmental revenue, 20% increase. Could you maybe detail what some of that is?
Yeah, that's largely driven by grants that we're going to be receiving from DCNR.
Okay.
Is there any money from the infrastructure infused in here, or we haven't received any money, or it doesn't come to us directly?
It wouldn't come to us directly.
Does anybody have any other questions?
Mike, staffing, are you at what complement you need to be at?
For the most part, yes. We have a couple vacancies in custodial, but aside from that, all the other departments are at normal staffing levels.
Just a couple custodians, that's it?
Yes.
Are they in what particular buildings?
They're at the government center.
Okay.
If there's no other questions, we'll just move on to his administration on page 140.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
The insect pest management, is that for the spotted lanternfly? Or is
It's
that something else?
it's not for spotted lanternfly. It's for mosquito-borne disease control.
Oh, okay. Like when they take the cars out and they spray?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, okay. That's gone up significantly since 2021. I'm just looking at it, it was 109 at one point in time, and now it's 142, almost 143.
Everything's going up.
I know, I'm just trying to figure out why.
Insect pest. It has gone up a bit since prior years because we've added a second, like a seasonal helper for that department, but it's funded through the grant that we receive from DEP.
So you mean you added another employee?
Seasonally, yes.
Okay. And that's not counted in personnel?
Under the insect pest management org, it is included in that personnel cost.
No, I'm just saying because expenditures by category, personnel is underneath, and then insect pest management, expenditures and costs.
Money comes in for the grant.
Oh, and then
money
expenditures,
goes out, yes.
because they're both listed as expenditures.
What's that?
They're both listed as expenditures by cost, and then by category. So that's just, okay, I got it. Sorry. Page 139.
Are you in the white book?
I am in the white book.
Yeah, so the personnel costs at the expenditures by category, that's the personnel costs for the entirety of the Public Works Administration org. So that's,
Right,
you
so
know-
whatever's included in that insect is also duplicated in that cost.
yes.
It's a redundancy.
Correct.
I get it, okay. Thank you. Sure does. Like,
Any other questions?
oh yeah, the Zika virus.
We just spray once once in the summer or twice?
It's throughout the summer. We'll, our technician will go out as we receive complaints, or if there's certain areas where they test on a weekly basis as well, and they see what the mosquito population is like in those areas. And if it's an area that requires spraying, they have their pesticide licenses and they can treat it directly.
Is that a certain time of the day, night, is that's done?
It's during the day.
Okay. Because some things were done at night, okay.
And then it is separate from the state's program that we contribute money to, but that's the extent of our involvement.
Got you.
Anything else? Moving on to insect pest management?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we jumped.
No,
My bad.
no, because it was under that. I guess it does raise a question of, there's things all over here that are in different places, so what part of insect pest management is covered under the administrative summary, and then why is there a separate breakout for another?
Well, the administrative summary covers like just my office staff, as well as the insect pest, as well as the solid waste and recycling organization. So it's kind of like how there's a overall bridges summary, and then there's individual pages for like Act 44, Act 89, Act 13, and so on.
We don't spray for ticks.
We do some sort of tick surveillance and control as part of our in-house efforts as well. I think they do tick drags.
Is that under this?
Yes.
Oh, okay, it's just not mentioned. It just says Zika virus and black flies and what's the other one? West Nile.
Yeah, our in-house efforts are primarily on mosquitoes, but they also do tick surveillance as well.
How do you surveil a tick?
I don't know I think they drag something, netting or something through
Oh,
a field, and then they see how many ticks come back on the netting, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We can go over that sometime, that's fine. I just think it's interesting. Tick dragging. Well, no, I was just talking to somebody about ticks the other day, and they were telling me how bad they were in this area. And I thought, because we just had like a slight little hot spell, right? Now it's cold again, the little snap. So it seems like they might have had a second breeding season or something, I don't know.
That could be.
So I figured that might be under your surveillance, you know. But no, it's okay. Got it.
Anything else? Under pest management? Solid waste and recycling.
Yeah, I guess for me, just generally, we have a $1.2 million fund balance, and it seems to be growing. Do we have plans moving forward? I see there's a few events, but, you know, I like having a fund balance, but then are we using it as best as possible? Because the one thing that I see is the need for e-cycling. Could you maybe comment on that?
Sure. And so the funding that we're getting, it's primarily from tipping fees from the local landfills. And most years it's it's exceeding the amount that we're spending on these collection events. And I would say the amount of collection events that we're offering, either directly in the past or now we've kind of transitioned to funding municipal events with the funding from this org, it just exceeds the amount that we're bringing in. But those tipping fees are not a stable source of revenue that we can rely on every single year. So the fund balance is growing, but I would like to keep a healthy balance in there just in case something were to change in the future with those tipping fees. We can continue to operate at this current level for quite some time.
Okay, so we're not doing, like, we used to have a big event once a year at the community college where you drove through and you opened up your trunk and all, you could get empty your basement or your garage. And are we still I mean, I know it stopped. Are we still doing that, or is that strictly municipal now?
The household hazardous waste event, we still offer that. We hadn't in the prior 2 years, I believe, due to COVID,
Right,
the amount of
yeah.
restrictions that were, DEP had on it. But we did host that event again this year.
Okay, it was at the community college?
Yes.
Okay,
You missed it.
I know, I've got an old printer in my basement I want to get rid of.
You know what you
Gotta
need to
wait
do?
till next year.
You
Thanks.
just have to travel around with it in your car for a couple months.
Yes, go ahead.
Is that the electronic stuff?
Correct.
Question, Michael, excuse me, the it was brought up, the electronics. And I know there's a place, in Allentown that takes the old CRT TVs and there's still some around, there's a lot in basements and this and that. And I know you pay a fee because nobody really wants them. Have we ever considered, and whether it's feasible or not, because I'm sure we'd have to invest some money, for the county to have an event where people could bring CRT TVs, and then the county could get them to a place where they take them. And I'm bringing this up because over the years, you'll see them at the side of a road, because people don't want to pay the fee. You'll see them in a dumpster, because I know that a neighbor was fixing something, and overnight, like 2 TVs showed up, old-style TVs in his dumpster, and the guys immediately threw them out on the curb. So I was just wondering, has that ever been thought about? Is it conceivable? Is it impractical?
Sure. Now, I'll let Serena speak to this further, but we did offer these e-cycling events in the past directly through the county, but since we've transitioned to more municipally hosted events that we're just funding and contributing to.
Well, and the other thing I would just like to tack onto that, that's okay, is I know some of these events are very clear, excludes TV sets and CRTs.
They're all included.
Oh, so a TV set shows up, it's fine?
Yes. We've hosted 17 events this year.
Oh, okay.
And the printer can go to Best Buy, no charge.
I have old motherboards
Say
at
that
home, and I
again?
used to
I'm sorry,
make.
could you repeat what you just said?
Yeah.
The printer can go to Best Buy, no charge.
There you go, John.
Oh,
I'm just trying to look up, I think my township has one this weekend. I was gonna take it off
Yes.
your hands.
Lower
now
Saucon.
this is
We are,
informative.
we're doing
Lower
it?
Saucon.
So,
My
so
favorite thing.
his printer can go. Any
TVs are
printer,
not accepted at Best Buy or Staples, but they accept everything else.
what don't they accept?
TVs,
Oh, but they'll accept like old
Printers,
motherboards and
computers.
stuff?
yes,
Oh,
no charge.
well, thank you very much. I didn't
welcome.
know that. I like to be a lifelong learner. All right, so yeah, so the TV, I mean, would that even be practical? Because I've been told in the past, nobody wants to take your TV, that's why you got to pay this
Well, these
place in
events
Allentown.
that we fund for the municipalities, they're accepted there, but there is a charge. So I think that's why the issue is ongoing.
So the events at the municipality, there is still, somebody can't just come up and drop it off, they're going to be charged if they get
Correct.
a TV.
For mostly TVs, the other items are free, but TVs
Okay.
are not.
All right, and it would be cost prohibitive to ever have a free drop-off TV event?
I would say yes.
All right, I was
The
curious.
cost- The
You're
cost is not excessive.
No.
What's the most, 35 bucks?
55 for like an 84-inch flat screen TV. The CRTs are usually around 40.
I hear you, and in fairness, it's not excessive. It's just that
It's
people
inconvenient.
could be notoriously cheap, and that's why they end up on the side of the road. So, I mean, you know, I was just curious if it could even happen, but I understand, it sounds like it probably wouldn't work out for us to ever just say, hey, here's this day, bring your TVs, we're not going to charge you. But I was just curious, so I'm taking that as probably not.
Probably, yeah.
All right, thank you, that's all I wanted to know.
You're welcome.
Okay. You said you had 17 events that happened this year?
Yes, we fund municipal-only events, so it's residents only, generally on a Saturday or a weekday, and the residents can come and everything's unloaded for them. And they pretty much just pay the cost of the TVs. Everything else is free.
And is that scheduled for the next fiscal year? Is it,
Well, municipalities would set it up. We just pay the vendor fee. So whatever is convenient for them, if it's a weekday or a Saturday, 2-3
Okay.
hours,
so
they
here's my
set it up.
question. If this is being done, and I'm hearing it for the first time, how many other people might not have been hearing about this? Can we get information as to what municipalities doing it, so maybe we can put it on our website, do where we can to make sure our constituents know about this?
Of course.
I'd appreciate that, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do they schedule those a year ahead of time, though, or just like a couple months ahead of time?
The year of, I would say, safest, yeah. Tell them to book as soon as possible, because the vendor that we use goes all over the place, but they're very accommodating.
Come to my house this weekend. I could take care of it for you.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions regarding this? Parks and Rec summary? Go ahead.
And you can, Michael, I was looking through and I saw that we have a big increase in intergovernmental, and budgetary fund balance dropped by 1.5 million. And I'm sure that shows up if I went to the Blue Book in various places here and there, but do you have and I see it here, for example, 500,000 dropped in OSI municipal parks, but we went up 600,000 in county parks. Could you just give a brief breakdown of that?
Sure. So the intergovernmental, I believe the reason why that is going up is
Yeah.
those DCNR grants that I had mentioned earlier. And the budgetary fund balance going down, it's because we've had a large amount of expenses in terms of grant funding going out this past year relative to last year. I mean, Brian, feel free to jump in if you would like, but I know the spending for the municipal grants that we administer, I believe that was higher this year than it was last year. Same thing with some of the, I think it was the Act 13 environmentally sensitive. We've spent money this year on property acquisition for municipalities. Bushkill Township had a property that we helped to fund the acquisition of, as well as some conservation easements. So those funding, those charges is what accounts for the budgetary fund balance decreasing.
Yeah, for example, the environmentally sensitive, I know we budgeted 770,000 for this year. We're projected at 550, but for 2023, we're budgeting $1 million, like at 289,000. Is that due to some of these grants? Because we didn't hit our projection, but for next year, we're going even higher. And I was just wondering,
You said that was for Act 13?
it's 3 up from the bottom, expenditures in the White Book by Cost Center. It's the environmentally sensitive.
OSI?
OSI and environmentally sensitive.
Those are used for land acquisition and conservation easements. So that money was out the door, and then later you'll see that there is a request of $800,000 to be put back into that. So that's where the $1 million will come from in the 2023. We have roughly $220,000 in the account right now that could be wiped out with the Bonarchek acquisition, but as you know, we've also put in a DCNR grant that would cover that too. So that's where that's at right now.
All right, because we budgeted 770,000. We're projected to spend 550,000 this year. So we're projected to spend less than we did, but for next year, you're budgeting 300,000 over what was budgeted in 2022, and you're expecting that most of that will be used. I'm just looking to get a sense of what's happening with that. That's all.
Part of the issue, part of the issue is, as we are purchasing land or making acquisitions, when we're
Right.
buying these easements, each easement costs a different amount of money based on the value of the land, appraisals and stuff like that, all of which we bring to council. So while we have money projected, and I'm not really exactly sure what's in the pipeline right now, that's more of a Brian question. But as you're looking at the budget, while we don't have a lot projected and we are going to spend more next year, there are other projects in the pipeline, and when the timing of those come up, when we bring them to county council, once the agreements are finalized and we're ready to go, we will let you know what those are. So that's based on what we know right now, not to mention the county executive's commitment to open space. There's $3 million in this budget that's distributed between farmland, open space, and OSI. And municipal parks, I apologize. So that is our fund to stop warehouse proliferation, do all those things, and it's a $3 million commitment. It's been ongoing, and it's been in every budget that we've proposed
All
since he
right,
took
and
office.
that's,
Does that make sense?
it makes sense in the sense of, I know why we fought World War II. But now what I'm going to get down to is what we're spending on the guns. You don't have to tell me how good it is. We're doing wonderful things. The thing is, I'm just curious because I sort of got the answer from them. We budgeted a fair amount more for some of these things than we actually needed in 2022. And now we're budgeting even more in 2023, but you're telling me that the reason we're doing it is because there's so much more being planned for 2023 that didn't happen in 2022.
So these grants also roll from year to year.
So some of
If-
that is rolled over money?
Correct.
Yeah, well, I
So Mr. Heckman.
Well, yeah, it shows. You're putting in, I guess I'm saying this because I've looked at budgets a long time, Steve.
No, I
like
know.
you.
And-
We're putting in $250,000 in both environmentally sensitive and environmental initiative, more than we budgeted last year. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a nice chunk of change.
And so if we can actually, so the 9/11 trail is a perfect example. As we buy certain parcels along the way, if we get municipal grants, if we can get a DCNR grant, and we have that money that is committed in the budget, we bring that whole package to county council.
Yeah.
Sometimes we spend more of our money. It's sort of a sliding scale. That money rolls from year to year. It also depends on what projects are available when we can get it done. So say, for example, we have a project, we're dealing with a landowner, we're going to get an easement for a trail. That may happen this year. We may have had it planned for this year, but there's a wrinkle, there's a hiccup. Something goes wrong with a title search that we have to clear up. Now we push that to a new calendar year, that money rolls over.
Right,
Yeah.
I hear what you're
And-
saying,
and-
and that's baked into
yeah.
the number.
Right, and this gives us, the budget we propose gives us the firepower to do everything we need and to preserve the land. And we bring every project to county council.
Yes, Steve.
So but what I'm saying is this budget, while it might not match what you see in every other budget like human services, where there are predictable costs, some of these things we can't predict.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, between the two, there was a $500,000 increase over what was budgeted, and we didn't get close to spending what was budgeted. So might have things in the pipeline. I understand that, and you do come to council, but you could always ask for more if you need it during the year. So you're baking it in based on the assumption that these things are all going to happen this coming year.
Correct. It's better to have, so you talked about the guns. It's better to have the ammunition to fire the guns and say, we have it in the budget, we just need to get council approval because you need to approve all land acquisitions, purchases, and easements to begin with under Article 13. So if I can go to someone and say, we have this appraisal, we've got this money in the budget, and they see that we have good faith money there, which is what we've done, going back to Glenn Reedman. Since we have that money in there, all we need to do is say, now we're going to take it to council. As long as the appraisals work out and it's what council wants to do, we can do it.
Okay, I mean, you understand why I was
I
asking.
understand. No, I do.
And you've never had opposition on sensitive land up there. I mean, you've pretty much gotten anything you want, and because council agrees and all of that. I was just wondering, as I look at numbers, I realize percentages can throw you off. So I go to the actual numbers, because if it's 1,000 and 2, it's 100%, and it's not that much. But these were two fairly large increases, and I always like to look at what was projected the year before and what was actually projected to be, what was budgeted, what's projected to be spent. And if I see a big jump or a bigger drop, that's usually something then that I like to dig a little bit. But I understand, and I wish you luck on getting the money, or getting the land. That's all I had.
I had a question, but I forgot it. It'll come back later.
After that, I forgot what I was going to ask.
I just wanted to ask.
I think it was because Steve said the money comes in A, B, and C, and I didn't hear the C because you corrected yourself. So you said the money is spread between farmland preservation, open space, and what's the third one? And then I got
Usually it
lost.
goes into municipal parks, but it's the $3 million commitment spread out over
All those
the
things.
projects we have.
Okay, because you said something that you, yeah, I got lost.
It's okay.
I can't, now I'm found. Blind, but now I see.
No, I just had a quick question about the Act 13. That's the impact fees from Marcellus Shale, right?
Correct.
So it's gone up. Does that mean that there are more impacts?
I would assume, right?
Marcel Shell.
It's based off the production, and the way it's done throughout the Commonwealth is if you have a well, you get more money. We are based off of population, off of the revenue, off of the shale.
Right, because we don't have any
Right.
wells in this county.
Now, in 2021, there was a large increase in production. We had significantly higher amount come in. We only budgeted for around 200,000. We were averaging around 175 to 225 on a good year.
Right, so is this?
Last year, we had
rolled
over 300,000.
Oh, wow. So is this rolled over from last year and a little bit of an increase from this?
It comes in June or July is when it comes into the county, is when we get our allocation.
So you can't necessarily predict.
It's a guess to what we thought of from the previous year. Now, this past year, it really threw numbers off, but we're still predicting somewhere what we were about 2 years ago and not the increase, so.
Oh, you're not predicting the increase?
We did a little, and
I think so, I'm not really sure.
With any kind of revenue like that, we always try to budget conservatively.
Sure, sure. I know it's just a thing at CCAP that they talk about, how like the areas that are directly impacted are always irritated that people like us get the benefits of the impact fees. And so ours went up. It does sound like there's a lot more impact, and I'm sure we'll hear about that when we go to CCAP in November at the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee meeting there.
Well, if I could just follow up, that's why we call it a commonwealth
I think we've digressed.
Oh,
I have a question.
Moments, wow.
Are there any other
I have a-
questions?
I have a question. With the Parks and Recreation summary, are there summer help
Yes, we do have
that's
summer.
included in this?
Yes.
What are you looking at for that? How many bodies?
12 total. That's just the grass cutters or the park attendants.
Park attendants, and then we have 4 grass cutters.
Yeah, so 4 grass cutters and the rest would be park attendants to assist with like reservations and setting up pavilions at our parks.
And is there any construction work or any work besides the bathrooms being done in any of these parks? Is that part of this, or is that going to be something else?
That would be spread out through OSI County Parks, I believe, would be the main source for that.
So you have some things that you're going to be working on, and you'll let us know as we proceed?
That's correct.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, moving on to, that was the summary, Parks and Rec specific.
oh, at the summary, I asked some questions.
The Hugh Moore, it's listed here, the Hugh Moore Trust Fund, but that just comes in under a budget amendment, correct? As we
That's,
get that surplus money, we bring it in?
you're mixing the two. This is the Louise Moore Pine bequest.
Under Parks and Rec on page 144, it states, miscellaneous reflects an estimate based on the current market for the reimbursement of earnings in the Hugh Moore Trust Fund.
I apologize, yes, that's the money we approve at the retirement board.
So my question was, is that something that it just stays there and then we bring it in under a budget request, or is that
No,
the?
It's in the ordinance that you're gonna pass. It comes in, it's the miscellaneous money that comes in. We take care of it. It's offset by expenditures. Because the formula at the pension board is up to a certain amount, expenditures, and we don't take the fund below $1 million.
Right.
The initial principal.
Any other questions? I guess I forgot, I had another question for Mr. Cope, but you can, it doesn't matter. When you were talking about these different grants that you get, last time we had Human Services here, and their timelines of grants are not within the same year as our budget. Are yours off in some way, or are they aligned like January to December? How do those different and if we need to get to that part of the budget, I can wait until then if that's easier for you.
It's kind of throughout the different orgs, but the simple answer is we apply for the grants in 1 year. We may get the award letter, but the contracts don't start till the year after.
Do we always expend the funds? And I guess that's, because in some of the other areas of the budget, we've been talking about rollover money. So how do we reflect that here? If we're getting in 1 year, how do we know if we spent all the money from the last year?
We track all the grant agreements, and you'll see them throughout the budget. It's based on the contract and the term of the grant with the state. And once we get the money, it's not our money to keep. So if the grant, and we don't expend all the funds, or if there's a mix of county contribution or county match, once that is done, if there's any leftover money, those monies for the projects don't roll over because they're usually grant specific. There are times we have to send money back. It might get pushed into another project if it's like an ongoing project and there's several grant award rounds. So it's all different based on the program. And when we bring those to council, we present those to you, and then they're reflected in the budget.
thank you. Any other questions regarding this? Louise Moorpine Behest. Any questions? None?
Yeah, we actually, since the budget was first drafted, the funding has been completely expended from this org.
So now what do we do?
So it's a zero?
Yes. So it just got removed.
You won't see it in the budget next year.
So we can expect an amendment then?
Yes.
from you? Okay, thank you.
So that doesn't get replenished in any way? That was like a trust that's like, once it's gone, it's
It
gone?
wasn't a trust, it was a one-time gift.
Oh, okay, one bequest, got it.
Okay. OSI County Parks.
I want to ask a
Go ahead,
question.
sure.
It might even be Steve again. I see, though, that our county contribution for 2023 is down 25%. Is that due to matching that you don't expect we're going to need to do? I'm on page, I'm sorry, 146 of the Blue Book. It's
White Book, sorry.
Blue Book. I'm looking on the Blue Book.
So it varies year to year
Yeah.
based on what our goals are. I mean, this is all part of that $2 million that gets allocated between the various open space orgs within Public Works. And then there's the additional $1 million for farmland preservation. But it varies year to year. There are some years where we might be putting more money into the OSI municipal parks. There are other years where we may prioritize our own county parks if there's a specific project where we're trying to accomplish.
Right. But I mean, based on what Steve answered before my questions, it seems like we're going to be more aggressive this coming year. And I know that's grant, we're using a lot of grants. And you did say sometimes we have to match. And I was just wondering, you know, because it's a fair amount of a drop in the county contribution. So you anticipate we're not going to need as much county match going forward, or
So this specific is so we have.
parks?
Yeah, so the county executive gives that $3 million for open space parks.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
1 million goes to farmland and there's 2 million left. And when we look at the projects that are able to be allocated over OSI, okay, we look at, if there's a municipal park, there's a project going on and we say, hey, Hellertown needs your band shell redone. We will help you with that for your park, right? So they might put up some money, we might put up some money, and we would put more money then into municipal parks. This year, there's less money going into the county park org, which is what we're talking about, because a lot of our projects there are finishing up, and the focus is on other projects, as you'll see that throughout the OSI orgs, based on what's going on.
We're down $200,000 because, for county, because you just don't feel you need it.
Correct.
In
Not
that
in
area-
that,
in
but
that
but
area.
it is reflected elsewhere. It might be reflected in
Well-
environmentally sensitive or municipal parks based on what's going on. But there's 2 million there in those 3 orgs for projects.
And that's why you're here. We need guidance and understanding some of these
Understand.
nuts and bolts.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you.
If you could just clarify, under OSI County Parks, it indicates that there are 2 DCNR grants. Specifically, what were those and where will they be going?
The OSI County Parks?
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking at 146 in the White Book.
Yeah, these are the
Two
two
pieces.
latest
Yeah.
grant awards that were awarded. The $300,000 for the Norbath Trail East Extension and the $300,000 for the Golf Farm. we got the grant amendments and contracts in early enough because it was an early September round that DCNR did. So fiscal put that in as revenue, and that's why there's the $600,000 in DCNR grants there.
And you expect to expend it next year?
No, but we have to put it in to show it as revenue. I believe that's correct.
That is correct.
So it has been approved
Yes.
from the state?
Yes, we have the contract done, and when we get the contract, I send it to fiscal. Once we have that, then they put it in as revenue. Those grants are normally a 3-year time period, though.
Okay, so the acquisition, you think will be done in the next 3 years?
Construction, no acquisition for those projects.
Okay. Now that explains it, thank you.
Anything else under county parks? Next, we have OSI municipal parks.
Yeah, again, if you could just go through the individual municipality awards, what it's for, I'm not sure if I have seen it yet. We're starting with, there's 200,000 to Bethlehem Township. That was for what?
So these are grants that have already been awarded in the past.
Oh,
I don't have the specific ones, but last year was one of the first years in the past few where we didn't award municipal park money because there was no money in the municipal park org. We had 4 grants out through Livable Landscapes for the restoration projects, the dam removal, 2 stream restoration projects, and for East Island Township's open space plan. What you see here, moving forward from the 23 budget, now these grants are a 2-year program, so these are probably done in 2021 that were awarded by council by resolution. Those are the ones moving forward. So this year, there's going to be 6 of those grants that were awarded with past funds that are moving forward and will close out in 2023.
Okay.
In 2020,
Yeah, just if you could refresh my memory, if it's been 2 years. And I guess the other question I have is, how far along is the municipality? I know, when I was a municipal official, boy, when we got county or state money, we were pretty quick to spend it so it wouldn't disappear. What's the status of, what was it and what's the status of, well, like I said, if we could just go through the one in Bethlehem Township, do you know that one, or?
I don't remember all of them specifically, but I want to say Bethlehem Township one was probably for the Archibald Johnston, the House-Neck
Okay.
Memorial Park.
Bushkill Township?
That was probably, I believe they had 2 different grants. One was for the Twin Pond, not Twin Ponds, Honda. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact
Yeah.
ones for each, but I could tell you that we're closing out 2 or 5 this year. So we had 11 open, and that was really some of the reasoning why we didn't put money into municipal parks last year. We had an abundance of those. There's 5 closing out this year, and actually for for the EELU meeting and for county council, there'll be a resolution for a withdrawal from Lower Nazareth. Their stormwater costs for construction of that park grant have just gone too much overboard, and they're willing to withdraw that grant. So actually that 47.2 would be put back into this org moving forward.
Okay. Hellertown, is that the band shell?
That might have been that one. Or actually, it might have been some stormwater improvements down at the park there.
Banshell's done. Wow.
Yeah, the stormwater improvements.
It's the stormwater improvements, like if you walk up from the lower parking lot to where the little kids play football in the
Yeah.
outfield of the big field, they did a whole bunch of stormwater improvements and had to replace the walkway so people could cross over safely.
Okay, so it's not done yet, there's still work, I haven't been there in a while.
No.
They're close
Yeah.
if they're not.
Okay, so you would anticipate closing out on that?
All of the ones that you see for 23 should be closed out in 23.
And Palmer, I think that one goes a ways back, doesn't it? I see for Palmer Township, 136,400.
It's improvements at Penn Pump Park. They're Penn Pump Park improvements. They're looking at doing restroom, walkways, ADA accessibility to the Two Rivers Trail, which is the Palmer Trail in that section. They're looking to move it kind of up out of the floodplain area and do some improvements down in there.
Do they anticipate doing it next year?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, that's what I had, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just a general question. I'm guessing some of this is related with COVID in the sense that they had trouble getting contractors, just as we've had trouble. So with some of this budgetary things and rolling forward and whatnot, it still has a relationship with COVID and delays.
It is, but there's also the permitting request. So if we get, if these municipalities request the grant funds, sometimes they won't move through all engineering, design, permitting, and that could take up to 8 to 10 months of
Yeah.
time. And I mean, we know that even more sometimes. So that's why we build into the grant program a minimum of 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's been a unique time in terms of budgeting and projects of all sorts for us and for our municipalities and whatnot. So, all right, thank you, Brian.
So is that a minimum of 2 years, or they are required to be done by 2 years? Because you're looking at a year out. You said you get the letter 1 year, and it actually doesn't start till another year afterwards, correct?
So for the grants that we get, like through DCNR, we
Right.
will apply in April. We'll find out probably,
October.
this year was an anomaly. We'll find out probably like November, December. By the time we get the contract in and the contract gets signed by both the state and us, they always backdate it normally to a January 1st of that following year. So the project can start, and we can't expunge any money. We can't do engineering, we can't do design, we can't buy any of the amenities that are under that grant until the grant starts, which is normally January 1st of that year.
Following
But
year.
the most significant portion for us as the county, when we provide grants, we have to show by resolution, and you've passed many of these, that we have the funding in place. That's a requirement that must be done. If they don't, there's a chance that it'll go through, but it's extremely low. And most times they'll kick it out in their review period because many others will say that they do have it and it's ready to go. So,
Well, we just show that we have it, and that's the most important thing,
yes.
to get things going.
Right.
All right, I appreciate the practice. Thank
Shovel
you.
ready, yes.
Shovel
ready.
ready is the term they use.
Anything else? OSI environmentally sensitive then? I guess again, I have a question on timelines. So we transfer the money in, there's $1 million there. This is money that's already committed, or there will be projects, like when do you solicit these grants or these requests to people to bid so that you can expend this money? Like, what are the timelines on that?
Yeah, so.
And again, maybe even if you, I'm sorry, I should have doubled back to even the municipal parks, like when do they apply, and then when do you grant? Because it is confusing you have it, but we don't have it, we don't remember.
No, that's completely fine. And so the way our Livable Landscapes grant program works is we go off of that year's commitment by council from the budget. So Sherry Acevedo runs our Livable Landscapes. She's our administrator for that. She'll do a grant workshop in late January, early February, and we normally have our grant round open in March. And that's when you'll start seeing our grant resolutions come through for Livable Landscapes, the municipal parks, any land acquisition, also grants that we run through Livable Landscapes that open it up for environmental restoration portions. So that money, we probably do it as quickest that I've ever seen. We get it in that year. That's approved on that January 1st. We run the grant in March. We get it through administration, our review. It goes up to Mike and Lamont, and then it comes to you. Normally, contracts go out by June or July. They could start June or July with those projects. So we have had some that have been done in 6 months. We have others that, and Mr. Kusick knows from past, that have gone on a few too many years too long. We've put a halt on that, but that's pretty much the timeline that we go by.
So what type of project comes through this fund?
From environmentally sensitive, this is only for acquisition or easement of land. So we keep this one open as a open round because we don't want it to wait and have negotiations fall out, a landowner not want to wait 6 months until the grant's back open. And these are the ones that you'll see maybe come through in June, or you might see something in October, or maybe a January. So that's why the money in here helps us provide the assurance to any of the landowners or the 5 different nonprofits that do work with us. They're really our outfielders. And also the municipalities. We have, I believe, 8, maybe 9 now municipalities that have an EIT. They leverage those funds with the county funds, and then they also go for state funds for acquisition and for these purposes. So that's really the reason why having the money in here at the beginning of the year helps us. And it's just a continuance of the county supporting this. This is why we're moving forward with those projects.
Who are those 9 municipalities?
Williams, Lower Mount Bethel, Upper Mount Bethel, Bushkill Township, Plainfield Township, Lower Naz, Upper Naz, and now East Allen Township.
Do you do any work with the others to try to?
Oh, actually, sorry, Moore is in there as well. Yes, we do outreach. Sherry, Maria Benzoni, they've gone out to a host of different municipalities. They've done workshops, and actually the last 3 for Upper Nazareth, East Allen, and Lower Nazareth, they did the workshops at a public outreach event, and they've all been successful. So they're kind of hitting 100 right now on that. Sherry was just out at Forks Township that's exploring this. We've also had calls from municipalities in Lehigh County because we have this program. They don't. They want to see how successful our EIT is and how it's run through the county like this. So other municipalities, other counties are looking at us, how we're doing this, and it's been extremely successful.
And EIT stands for?
Earned income tax. There's a dedicated, normally a 0.25% or less that a municipality can put towards those funds. And now, about a couple years ago, they amended the law at the state level, and 25%, I believe, can be used for any maintenance on those properties that are purchased with that as well. So it really helps out. So if a municipality wants to buy a parkland, they can use their EIT to do that. They can also turn around in the upcoming years and use it for maintenance on it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So this is the one you want to keep $1 million to start the year off with, correct?
800,000 right now until we know we have the DCNR grant in hand for the Budnar track, which would wipe us out with the 219 that's in there.
That's why you want to keep it at that.
Yes.
That's aggressive. I like the approach.
It helps us out tremendously knowing that, for others knowing that we're committed behind it.
Yeah, it's a huge plus. Good idea.
Anything else? Thank you, Brian. Act 13 Environmental Initiative.
Your program operating costs went up 2,900%. Can you just account for that? Is that a typo? Under
That's page 149 in the blue.
149, it says program operating costs, budget for 2022 is $5,000, and then for 2023, it's $150,000.
Steve, is that just how it's shown when the fund balance goes up, a certain amount is allocated? Yeah, it's just the fund balance, it's just when we're showing a fund balance, a certain portion of that is allocated to operating expenses and the rest goes to capital. And it looks like the balance has just shifted from less capital to more operating cost.
Yeah, because the other one's down 69%. And I was thinking maybe that's because there's not many more improvements on the Norbath Trail.
We have a lot of projects this year that we funded, capital projects funded out of Act 13, including the Norbath Trail. Were there any other projects we were planning to fund next?
Next year? Yeah. Yeah, this one, it looks worse off than it is. I mean, really, right off the bat, we have nearly 1.3 million tied up into projects through grants in this act, in the Act 13, because that's what we've used it historically for.
Okay.
The Norbath Trail and the other improvements, that one is for, just let me make sure. I believe it was for Wyatuck and some Fry's Run. So Mincy Lake project comes out of the Act 13, the planning, and the rehab project. All of the Norbath Trail historically was out of that as well. So that's where you're seeing those big decreases because we're actually getting construction projects done.
Right. But, so what's the big increase for the operational costs? Like, what accounts for that?
Like Mike said, it's just a shift in some of the funding that we may be able to use for engineering or environmentally sensitive land acquisition in that one. Right now, it's a placeholder under the Act 13 that if we need it under there, we can use it for that right then.
So you could dip into that if you need to.
Right. And with all of the other projects that we have, there's some built-in, and it's really built in because we had another $300,000 come in, or an over by $100,000 that we budgeted for when that cost allocation came in the beginning of the year. But we also see increase in costs for construction, so we have a little buffer off of that money that came in that we're gonna, if we need to, we can use for these other construction projects and not tap into anything else.
Okay, just checking. It just looks like an astronomical
does.
hike,
Yeah.
2,900%.
I wanted to ask Steve, because this is a nice round number, if you could help. I think this will clarify, because I always have to remember this too. If you look at the Environmental Initiative, Act 13, and I'm looking in the blue book on page 149, you show what Tara was just talking about. The 2022 budget was 5,000, right? But it's projected at 0. So the new budget is 150,000. But if you look at the budget change, you roll, the reason it's 150, but the change 145, because that 5 got rolled in. So really, when you look at a budget change, that should always tell you what the new money is.
That is correct.
So, and I think that's important, because I know there's kind of sometimes confusion about rolling forward, not rolling forward, and I like this because it's not, it's pretty straightforward. And so and I look at it sometimes, no matter what we're looking at, the budget change should be new monies, whatever source it comes from.
Right, and the percentage is actually the budget change number. So what the percentage was from the prior year, the change number actually is broken down into a percentage. So that's why it looks all screwy, because you go from 5,000 to 145,000.
Yeah, it's a big change.
Yeah.
Gotcha, thanks.
Any other questions on this? Livable landscapes?
One on that, Brian, I guess you're up on this one as well. Can you maybe just take us through these projects that we have in the pipeline here? Some of them look like they might be holdovers, and give us a status update for grants. I think the first one starts with PA Parks and Forests Foundation, 20,000.
Yeah, that was one of the 4 grants that we awarded this past year for stream restoration within Jacobsburg Park.
Okay.
Along the Bushkill.
Anticipate expending it next year then?
I believe they do, but once again, it's within the Livable Landscapes Grant Program, so it is tied to a 2-year program.
Okay. Wildlands Conservancy, 100,000, what's that project, and where's the status of it? It was in this year's budget for 100, then there's 100 in next year's budget. Is
This
that new
was
money or
for
rollover?
the dam removal along the Bushkill right here in Easton.
Oh,
That was part of the matching grants that they were awarded. They had other grants through the fly ash, and also, I believe, a DCNR or DEP grant for stream restoration and dam removal.
Okay. Yeah, then, go ahead.
The first 3 dams from the Delaware, it was one of the 4 grants that we were awarded. Yes, not on the Delaware, in the Bushkill, sorry.
That's why you confused me.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the next one is East Allen Township, 105. That looks like a carryover, is it? And what's the status of that?
That may be a double. I know they were awarded money for their Park Rec open space plan. I know it wasn't $105,000, but there might be another, I know they have another grant for some restoration work at Bicentennial Park where they were gonna do meadow and
I do
stuff.
recall that.
Yeah,
So that 105 is a carryover, or is it additional 105,000? That's what I'm trying to,
it looks like a carryover.
okay. Hellertown, another 40,000 carryover, I assume, or what's that for?
Yeah, all of them that you would see in the 22 budget, except the 4, the Bushkill, the Delaware, the PA Parks and Wildlands, are all carryovers from previous grants.
Okay,
So all of those should be closed out. And to give you a rundown, there's 9 grants that are closing out in 2022. 8 grants are going to roll over into 2023.
okay. You don't recall specifically what the Hellertown one was? How about Lower Saucon? That again looks like a rollover. Any updates on that one?
Or Saucon, that might have been, I'm thinking it's some trail improvement, like a mile-long outer loop trail in their, what's their big park down there?
In Hellertown?
With
No, in Lower Saucon.
3 parks.
There, I think it's like a tiered area that has soccer fields and stuff.
Oh, Polk Valley.
That might be it. There's a outer trail loop that I believe that we helped fund. It was like a mile long, so that makes sense for about that.
Okay. Plainfield, 100,000, that looks like a carryover.
Yeah, and I believe that was for improvements at their community park.
Okay. Tatamy, 75, that also looks like a carryover.
That actually was one of the grants that we just, that might have been one of the ones that, maybe not the Wildlands did. But that is for the traffic improvements in the borough that will help out the Two Rivers and 9/11 Trail that has the crossings. It'll help cross over the bridge and cross over north right where the, right along Main Street there.
Yeah, okay. And then Wind Gap, that one is a different amount. It was last year, or 22, it was 154, and then next year 75. Is that new money, or is there leftover work?
They probably had 2 different grants, and this falls back onto why we didn't fund some of those other ones in the past. But this, I believe, is for walking trail improvements that are in their community park along the backside, and it'll connect into new development that's going on there.
So there's 2 grants, one they've finished and one the 75 that's still outstanding?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Brian, I'm just curious, given the COVID and everything we talked about at supply chain, have any of these grantors at any level, did they cut any breaks in terms of, I know you're on a clock when you get these things, and you or the municipalities, were you or others offered extended periods of time based on the situation, or did the grants not change?
No, we
You know what I
definitely
mean?
were extended, especially like our Mincy Lake project.
Yeah.
Through DCNR, we requested an extension because we couldn't get material, because we couldn't get things together. So we have written a few requests for extensions by 1 year because of all of those, and that's why you
That
start to
would
see.
filter down to the municipalities in some cases, that they would get, the money they're going to use would be an extended, because they're on the clock too with the
Right.
money you give.
There has been some that the
Some
county
yes,
has.
some no.
Right, and from our livable landscape, we have provided a 1-year extension on some.
Yeah, I know, just from general people I've talked to in municipal level, that they're hit by the supply chain just as much as businesses, and you know, especially for like getting materials and
Right.
whatnot. So, all right, thanks. I was just curious.
Go ahead.
I got a question, because you're locking in, you got contracts with these people, and with things going up the way they are they coming back to us, or they just locked in at that price?
They are locked in at the grant amount.
No matter what happens, if they gotta take a hit, they gotta take a hit on it.
We work with them, and it would reflect a resolution change if there's any amendment to the grant itself. We could come back and ask that the scope of work would be amended. They haven't gotten to that point yet, except the one that you'll see next week. Lower Nazareth just said, we can't do that right now, and that they're expunging that grant. So we do work with them. Sherry stays on top. She's calling them left and right. They're calling her. We try to work with them as much as possible. And maybe they don't do an asphalt trail. They do a stone surfacing and cut a lot of cost out that way. So we stay up on the best trends and try to help out what we find out when we're doing our grants and pass it along to municipalities as well.
Okay. That answers my question. I'm just a little curious about that.
Yeah.
Anything else? Next, we have custodial services.
On that, are you low on your fuel consumption with the way prices have been going through the roof?
No, we do have a slight increase in the transportation line item for this org, and because custodial, there's much less traveling than our other departments.
What are we paying mileage to people if they travel in between, or no?
We have like a couple vehicles in our fleet for custodial that they use for most of their travel. It's pretty rare that an employee would use their own personal vehicle.
So we're using vehicles that we furbish for them?
Yes.
Okay.
But if by chance they needed to, they get mileage.
Correct. There is one.
Vehicle wasn't available.
Yeah, there is one position that their normal shift, they start their day here at the government center, and then they go to the human services building. And that position, we do reimburse for mileage with that.
Okay. This wouldn't be in here, I guess it would be in the next one when you get to it, but I see we only have one painter, and is that into the next maintenance part?
That's an O&M, yes.
Okay, I'll get to that when we get to that then, okay.
Any other questions under custodial? Operations and maintenance? Mr. Myers?
Okay. We have one painter, correct?
We have one painter at the government center and one at Graysdale.
This kind of sort of upset me. I saw this guy on his hands and knees painting yellow stripes in the hot damn sun. Is there any way we can do something that's less of a strain on someone's body instead of having someone on their knees painting stripes? Do we have a better way of monopolizing this man's time? Maybe we get done as fast. Is there a way we can purchase some equipment and make it a little easier on this person?
We can certainly look into that, yes.
Because every time I was coming in, I'm saying this, I would just shake my head. I can't believe this guy's doing this in the evening on his hands and knees, painting yellow freaking stripes. Here at this building. This building, in the parking lot, where the deck was.
Yeah, and he's like 6'6".
He's 6'9".
Okay.
So close.
You know, and the only reason I do that, I've known Michael his whole life. That's why it just blew me away that we've got to get a better way of doing this than what we're doing it. We're not utilizing our people correctly, or we got to find better ways of getting things done. If we can find a piece of equipment that's electric or air powered or whatever, let's invest some money in that. And I'm more than willing to do that to get things done. Only thing you got to do is ask for something like that. That just doesn't make any sense. We're not working smart. Take a look at some of the things we do, Mike. Get back to me, and let's see if we can do things a little smarter without a chance. I don't want to see anybody get hurt doing something stupid. If we can work smarter.
Maybe we could send Bertinger out to help him now and then.
I'm not joking at this point. You know, I just see it as a waste of manpower that we could probably cut in half if we got the right equipment for these people. So, you know, it may not be in our budget, but maybe we ought to find a way to get it in the budget. And if I piss anybody off, I frankly don't give a damn. You know, let's do things smarter. Let's take care of our people. We don't need them out hurt. We need them here working and being part of the family. Let's take care of our folks. So get back to me, see what you're gonna do. If you need some help, let me know, because I just don't understand some of the things we do, which is silly, all right?
Yeah, I mean, I know, and Steve knows this, the white line, you know, they have the chalk things well, now everything's fancier, but it used to be the chalk thing you put out. There must be something, even if it's hand operated, to do a line.
PennDOT uses, they just use it, yeah, they just use spray.
We do,
Home Depot.
Thomas
Can't buy
Township has them.
we do,
Probably have to have them. Why are we using them?
we do have a machine for thinner lines like you would find in, you know, your average parking space, but the lines that Mr. Myers is referring to, they're the thicker yellow, like hatching to denote an area where you're not supposed to park.
Yeah.
And I know our painter did, you know, we tried rolling it at first. He said it wasn't, you know, it wasn't absorbing into the pavement. So his preference was to paint it with a brush.
That's not,
So that was his preference.
whether it's preference or not, it's not smart in 95-degree
Let's
temperature.
appreciate his effort
Ingenuity.
and his willingness to do his job very well. But that being said, I agree with Mr. Myers.
We can
Because if he had a
certainly-
choice between A or B, maybe if he had C, it would have worked. But so I guess the question, if I could piggyback off
Go
what you're
ahead,
saying is.
please do.
What other equipment are we not investing in that might not cost us that much more, that we could shift some funds and get that for you?
I'm not aware of any other equipment that we would be, you know, lacking for. I mean, our staff here is pretty well stocked up on tools for any job that they would need.
Can I just follow up on that then? I noticed in your list of vehicles for O&M, there's a Ford Explorer with 142,000 miles. That one stands out amongst the whole fleet. Does that need to be replaced, or what's, I mean, I'm all for keeping a car as long as possible, but, I mean, there comes a point where it makes sense to replace it. It'll be 10 years old, and that's a lot of miles.
At least in terms of its time within the department, that's probably our newest vehicle. It was an old police cruiser that they were looking to get rid of, and it actually replaced a Trailblazer that was in much worse shape. So the mileage is high, but it's for our O&M staff at Graysdale. They don't do a lot of driving. It's, you know, you might only see probably less than 5,000 miles a year. So for our purposes, it's certainly adequate.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Moving on to the bridges summary page.
Bridges.
I know, I dream of
We love
bridges.
bridges.
Anything you want to say overall before we break into the different ones?
I mean, intergovernmental is shown as a decrease. Again, that's more just because we try to budget conservatively with the funding that we're projecting to receive from PennDOT.
Well, we had that interesting presentation on this matter. Go ahead, Mr. Myers.
With the lighting that we have to do on 2233, wherever else we're doing, are we going to LEDs?
We've looked into it. It's not as simple as just changing some bulbs, though.
It's a different fixture?
Yes. It would cost a lot of money for us to convert to LEDs.
Or, long-term, what's the balance if we do it slowly, couple at a time?
Do you want to speak on this?
Come on up here, because I can't, I'm old, I can't hear that well.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah, so to replace to LEDs, we'd have to replace the whole Cobra head,
I'm well aware of that.
which would take just to replace a bulb there now, you have to get a lift out there and it takes time just to replace one. It can cost like up to $1,000. So you add into the fixture, which are around 500 to 1,000 for the fixtures.
Sir, could
Well,
you
one
state
picture
your
is how-
name? Sorry,
Oh.
Ms. Zembo?
Landon Parker.
Thank you.
So explain that to me again. One fixture, what's the cost?
Well, it can cost up to $2,000 just to do one fixture. And we have, thousands of them, so.
Well aware we got thousands, but, here's the issue.
Yep.
How much longer are these lights gonna be made available to us? That's another problem that you had.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, because
I'm all for
either
it
we bite it in
because,
the ass at some point,
yeah.
we're gonna have to start thinking about something as cost effectiveness. Am I correct with that?
I'm all for switching LEDs if.
I'm not talking about doing it all
Yeah.
at one time, but we should gradually move in that direction and Ms. Environmental, am I wrong here?
I think we should have solar lights, but I'm like going a step over that.
But another problem with that too is you have to get it approved for, the highways
needs
and
to be
stuff.
approved by PennDOT.
So, but what Bethlehem did, they actually did it without approval. Nothing, I mean. So they're still testing that out to see if that's something that we could even do. So we've been in discussion with PennDOT over it. But yeah, if we can do it, if we can find the money, I'm all for it. Because
On the American Parkway, there's, all those solar lights.
yeah, this might be a little more.
If looking at some of these lights, is there anything we can throw in there that may be efficient, or we just gotta go with what we got?
I'm sorry.
Okay. I'll ask that question again. Is there any way we can use a more efficient light bulb, or do we have, or we have to go with what we got? Have we investigated that at all?
As far as replacing the bulb, again, we can go to like a Cobra Head LED, or a corncob LED that screws into place, other than the sodiums that we have right now.
We're contracted with who to use the lift?
But again, that's LED and we'd still have to get, PennDOT approval for anything like that.
Okay.
So as far as, an old style bulb, there's not much you can do, a different gas, but it's still about the same as wattage usage.
Are we contracted with one company to do this?
We're contracted with one company to maintain them. So
Is that a yearly contract?
it's a 3-year contract. So if there's an accident, if a pole gets knocked down, photocell goes out, wiring issue, anything like that, then we call the company and they come out and replace the pole or fix it or do any wiring like that.
What's usually the downtime with that? Couple days, next day? How quickly do they react?
The poles, if one gets knocked down, during COVID, they were months back ordered.
Right.
So we'd be without it. So they'll come out right away as soon as the pole's knocked down, especially if it's, in the lane. Usually the emergency services will do a good job of getting it off the road, and then they'll come through in the next day or two and pick it up. They'll be out quicker if it's an emergency.
Okay, I was just fishing.
Yep. All right.
Any other questions regarding that? Let's get into each category. Page 154, bridges. Oh, I guess that was sort of what we just talked about there, but. Any questions, comments? How many folks do we have that work in this department?
3,
3 full-time?
correct. And then we bring in seasonal help during the summer.
How, I don't know how to ask this nicely. How long have they been with the county? Are they newer employees, older folks nearing retirement? Like, how are we set?
Well, one of those employees is Landon, the other 2 full-time employees. They're both been with the county for quite a while, yeah, since roughly 2008, 2009.
I don't know how to ask about aging sensitively, I guess. I don't know. I have to take from you guys. Anything else under this? Let's move into Act 13, Bridge Improvements. Our favorite two bridges. I have a question. The bridge on Lower Saucon Road between Wassergass and Easton Road, who owns that bridge?
Is that PennDOT?
No, I'm very familiar with where that is. You need to come up, Landon. You can't sit in the back, sorry.
We don't bite, yeah.
Steve might, but we don't.
So if it's a state road, then the state owns it. If it's a municipal bridge, our bridges are all mixed in throughout the whole
Lower
county.
Saucon Road, I don't know, it's just out, many detour signs. I'm not sure who owns it.
I think that's the municipality.
So it's a Lower Saucon Bridge?
If it's in their municipality, yes.
We don't have any bridges now.
Say what, Steve?
Other than Meadows, we don't really have many bridges out.
I'm just curious who did own it, because it's been out for a while, so.
Yeah, the bridges that we have out, other than the Meadows Bridge, are bridges that have been closed for years.
Such as?
Bridge 19, Bridge 31, which I'm sure you know about Bridge 31.
I don't, please don't, I
Okay, that one was the
never
topic.
assume that I know which bridge is what.
Bridge 31 is the one that has been the topic for many years, yeah.
Oh, is that your bridge?
No, it's in Lower Mount Bethel.
Lower Mount
We had
Bethel, yeah.
extensive meetings on that one bridge with the township, and there's been no resolution.
Okay.
And
Is that the one lane deal?
It's up by the power plant.
Oh, okay.
Yep, yeah. Bridge 8, which is down there on Coffeetown Road, that's getting replaced. That was out during the
That's being worked
hurricane.
on, correct?
Correct.
Well, there's a construction trailer, a pickup truck, and a crane that have been sitting in Fry's Run Park now for months.
Who's,
I guess maybe an update. Have they figured out what's going on? Because it's dragged on all summer.
Yeah, there was a change in the, go ahead.
Yeah.
I love that. Let's do that again.
Yeah, this is the, this goes back to the issues with they could not install the scour protection that was designed by the engineer. The soils under the abutments were just not suitable for it. And the second that they started doing any kind of excavation near the abutments, they was starting to undermine them. And partially because the water table that they encountered, it was higher than what was shown on the boring logs. So then they went back to the engineer, they came up with a new scheme, they started to work on installing that. The same issue happened again with the high water table. So they went back to the drawing board. We think that we have another solution now that will work. So work should be resuming over there in the near future.
Okay, because the neighbors, like, they're accommodating, but that equipment has been there. It's in Fry's Run Park as well, so we'd like to see it move along. So that's all I'll say about that.
Who's
And I'm
doing
sure
that,
you
Brian?
would too.
Who's
And I
working?
leave.
I leave.
And then, okay, go ahead, Lenny. Do dish.
41, which you already know about.
Ugh,
Wait, what's 41?
Oh,
that's a P3, we'll get there.
yeah, that's Little Creek. Bridge 168, which is in Glendon, that has been closed for many, many years. That's,
Is that near Iron?
yeah, that's the old Iron Bridge. So, yes, you got it, and the canal.
Can I ask a question on that one? Why can't that be open for pedestrians and bicycles? Is it that bad that it's gonna fall in the river?
It would
I
need
used to
some,
ride
it would
my
need
bike.
some
Wait,
work
let
for
him
that.
answer.
It
I
it
used
would
to
need
ride
some
my
work to be
bike
open
over
for
all the
that,
time.
yeah. But, and there's also no, I guess, pedestrian sidewalks on the other side or proper traffic plan. So, Glendon would have to get involved with something like that and it end up being a big undertaking. And they don't have all the resources in the world.
They have little or no resources there, but
And then Bridge 212 on Sandpit Road, that was wiped out it wasn't wiped out completely, but a big hole in the deck, last year's, storms that we were getting. That one's closed, not, on the list to be repaired anytime soon because it has a very short detour. So that's in Upper Mount Bethel. 19.
Sorry, but where's that, where is 19 at?
It's in Bethlehem. It's an old Iron Truss bridge that is just used for pedestrians. It's in is that Lower Sauk and Bethlehem area?
Oh, is that the High Street Bridge?
Yeah. Where like Crossroads Hotel was.
I like that bridge. Missed that bridge.
So yes, that one would.
So you're saying, so we have no plans to fix any of these?
He can't answer that
The Meadows Bridge.
Well, don't talk, we understand the Meadows is a nightmare. We understand that. We'll get to it separately.
Other than that, I mean, 31 is probably a topic for Mike, and yeah, go ahead.
Thank you.
Some of these bridges we've tried in the past to get funding through LVTS and have them be partially state funded. As Landon mentioned, a lot of them have been closed for a long time with really little impact on the surrounding communities. A lot of them are just, mostly obsolete at this point in time in terms of their necessity for the local traffic. So it's kind of hard to justify spending $2 million to replace that bridge in southern Bethlehem that Landon just referenced when it's been closed since 2013, I think, and there's been no issues ever since. The traffic there is so low, there's no need to replace it.
Yeah, and I'll just say the frustrating thing is to hear other elected officials brag about how much money and infrastructure that they've passed. And we seem to never address some of these. I would like to see us get our fair share of that money, and it always seems to get funneled through the transportation study, which you so nicely detailed for us. I think we don't get our fair share, but that's another story. Thanks.
Correct me, the bridge that's near Widow Brown Stockertown, is that still out? The backside, yeah. Is that one
The
still
one of
out?
all, no, that was put back.
Was that
right?
the one in the P3? Yeah, that's since been reopened.
Yeah, that's a P3. That was rectified, right?
Yeah.
It's just to show how I've been avoiding that area, okay.
Michael, as you go through, because I was looking, and as you go through the bridges, 13, 44, 89, and leaving P3 out of it for now, I see some big swings with capital, as far as percentages go. And the White Book, I don't see the explanation, as I can't make it out so clearly. Could you address each bridge as you go forward? You have to do it all now, but I think are we now on Act 13 bridge?
We're on Act 13, 155 in the White Book.
Okay, yeah, all right. On Bridge 13, we have a swing on the budgetary fund balance going down and the capital. Since it's a fair amount, could you just explain why there was such what happened to make a big change?
Sure, and the reason for that is because we have two active projects right now from Act 13. I think in all actuality, the numbers won't be quite as drastic because, we've had those delays on Bridge 8, so some of the funding that was initially projected to occur in 2022 will likely be in 2023 instead. But so that is the reason why the fund balance is decreasing, because we're still funding the engineering costs on Bridge 15, and we're still funding the construction costs on Bridge 8.
All right, but I mean, as far as Bridge Act 13, Act 13 bridge improvements, that's the reason that you just gave across the board on the Act 13.
For Act 13, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Lower Saucon is in the design phase, correct?
Final design, yes.
Oh, I like that word. That means we're 10 years away from having it done, right? No.
Yeah.
When do we expect to break? 23 or 24?
24.
My birthday's in December. If you'd like to get it moved up to then, that would be nice. It's been too long. You know, I just want to make a little comment, and I understand, like, we're looking at fiscal necessity. I know that some of these bridges aren't like high traffic, but I think the problem with the small bridge like that High Street Bridge is that's closed, then Meadows closed. And so if there is flooding, at least I could speak to that area. If there's a Water Street was done by Hellertown, and then there's only one other crossover. When we've had really bad storms, you would not be able to get from point A to point B. So that's just that area's problem, but it's still our problem to take a look at how to get other funding for it. So I agree at some level with Mr. Cusick, or even, like, what if there was a way to begin to look at what would be the options for making that a bike hike trail? I mean, what would a design study cost if we wanted to look at that Glendon Bridge?
Well, the municipality has approached us in the past to see, you know, could it be converted into a pedestrian bridge? But as Landon said, it leads to a very busy road, Main Street in Glendon, where the speed limits are fairly high and there is no sidewalks. So it's not something that I could in good conscience would recommend that being made a pedestrian bridge. Because
Right.
you would be funneling people
Because you
out
come right out to
into
that.
a dangerous traffic situation.
They don't even stop, they roll through stop signs.
Correct.
But hypothetically speaking, the cost of a study to investigate or design would be ballpark? Not that you'd recommend it, but just, again,
50,000, maybe?
50,000? Okay, I'm done picking on it. Anybody else have questions? Act 44, bridge improvement?
Same question. As I mentioned, Michael, if you could just go into the swig. I'm doing each one as we go, Act 44.
Sure. So there's not much change with Act 44 from this year to next. We don't have any active projects being funded with Act 44. The fund balance is still fairly small, so it's not enough to really complete any kind of major bridge work. So at this point, there's no projects, projected or requested out of this org for next year. So everything that we're bringing in is just growing the fund balance.
So what would qualify to be in this fund?
I believe any kind of bridge construction, reconstruction, or maintenance type of project.
Oh, so a $50,000 study to see if you could do a design would not be part of this? Could that be used for design or planning?
Landon, do you know that? We would have to have PennDOT's approval for something like that to use these funds, but it might be possible.
Okay, anybody else? Act 89?
Same question for me. $250,000 increase budgetary fund capital.
And yeah, again, that's because there were no expenses in 2022 from Act 89, but we are projecting to fund the construction for the Bridge 74. It's in Bushkill Township. We're going to be doing a superstructure replacement on that, and that's projected to be funded out of Act 89.
Explain what this Act 89 is to me, 'cause I was puzzled last time. So what exactly is the Act 89 bridge? What is that?
Do you know the funding source?
It's the Oil Co. Franchise Tax Vehicle Registration Fund, and it's for bridge improvements.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Myers, I'm cut in. The Bridge 74 then, where are we in that process for that bridge? It says the anticipated rehabilitation. Are we at the beginning, at the design phase? What?
We're towards the end, right? Yeah, so we'll be going out for bid probably soon.
So the money in the budget is for there's not a lot of money there, no? It's $1 million, that's all we need for the rehab?
Yes, yeah, because we're only doing a superstructure and a deck repair, or replacement, so we're not doing a whole bridge.
That's nice.
And as far as the study goes for like the Glendon, the pedestrian area, we're really only, we get our funding for the bridge itself and not so much the areas off the bridge. So to get funding to do a pedestrian study there, you know, we may be able to get it done, but we'd definitely have to get PennDOT's approval, and we'd have to, you know, phrase it in a certain way that we could do such.
Glendon is a state road.
Right, but the funding for our bridges is for the bridge itself. So even though that's a state road, that's technically a separate area.
That is a state road,
Yeah.
they're gonna be flipping out about that.
Yeah, so I don't know how they're gonna respond.
Come up before, with Eastern Council, and they went, no, don't try that. Right. It's a dangerous.
We're not gonna make you do it, don't worry about it.
It's a very
We know
dangerous
somebody who's on the Transportation Committee, we could talk to him, and there's somebody on the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission right over there to talk about pedestrian, we could talk to other people, don't worry about it. Go ahead.
Michael, just in general, with these funds, and I know they come from different sources, and the bridges we have, in general, without getting this, our county bridges, as it's been brought up, there's some that's been delayed, there's some issues that need to be repaired. Where do we stand in terms of fixing what we have before we branch off into anything new? I mean, is it a matter, I know it takes, and PennDOT is probably one of the hardest bureaucracies and timeframe bureaucracies, and I think people may not understand at times what you have to do to get something for somebody to just say, yeah, go ahead and look, or yeah, go ahead and do it. But as far as these funds go for maintenance and repair, that's really what I get concerned about going forward, because as been brought up, we have so many bridges in this county, and I know I'm pushing P3 to the side for now. The bridges we still have, are we getting sufficient revenue coming in to keep up with them? Or, this is a director question, because, you know, the big picture question.
Yeah, I would say the amount of revenue that we're bringing in from all these various, you know, ACT funding from the state, I'd say it's generally sufficient to maintain what we have. I think a lot of that's due to the fact that the county did invest so heavily in the P3 project of our own money to take care of 20 or 25 bridges on our own. If it hadn't been for that, I think we would be in a pretty deep hole in terms of catching up on maintenance on these bridges. But I mean, we still have to prioritize, of course. Like Landon said, we have bridges that if the detour route is very small and the traffic is very low, we might just leave it closed indefinitely or for a longer period of time, so that we ensure that we have enough money available in case a higher priority bridge were to suddenly need significant maintenance or replacement.
And I should probably know this, but since you're standing in front of me now, I've got to ask you, that the issue with Martins Creek, the one-lane road where everybody was screaming because the traffic, the school buses, what's the status of that? Because I know they wanted to go two-lane. I think the state now, you can't do one. They won't give you money to fix a one-lane, I believe, anymore. It's like, because it's got to be two-lane, or don't come to us for money or replacement. And there was a lot of turbulence around that bridge. What's the status of that? I might have missed it along the way.
Are we talking about the Little Creek Road Bridge?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, because people came in and they didn't want it changed. It needed to be fixed, but it's a one-lane bridge, and we were like, well, we can't fix it.
Yes.
It's going to have to be two-lane, and they're like, we don't want a two-lane bridge.
Yeah, so there was 5 bridges on Little Creek Road that were in the original scope of the P3.
Yeah.
And 3 of them wound up being removed as we looked more closely in terms of why they were selected, and didn't really have a great answer for 3 of them, so.
Is that in the P3 project, that bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, there were
Okay.
5 initially. It's down to 2. One was replaced last year. One is currently under construction and should be done probably within the next month.
So I guess my question is, that specific bridge is still there, still one lane?
The one that you're referring to, I believe, yes, it hasn't changed.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because you don't often get, other than people saying, we want a new bridge, fix it. In that case, it was like a safety issue, and the people came in and said, no, one lane makes it safer. And others said, it's unsafe. So I just wondered, because I know there was a big debate around that bridge.
Oh, still. Still. Anything else under Act 89? Moving on to P3. When did you say that 41 was, I missed the last meeting, I had a conflict, so.
It should be done by the end of this month, I would think, but Krieger isn't necessarily the most predictable entity, so.
I'm not even gonna ask that question. So the money here is only for the one, we only have to make the annual milestone payment at this point, right?
And to Krieger, yes, and there are still some, ancillary costs in this org for utility relocation work, the engineering contracts, all those fees.
There's one bridge left after 41, correct?
There's 2. There's Bridge 124, which is Willowbrook Road in East Allen, and there is Bridge 101, which is Hanoverville Road in, I believe, Lower Nazareth.
And I forget the dates on them. Don't you know them in your sleep, or do I have to go back and get them next month?
I mean, they both require, there's both major headaches with both. The Willowbrook Road one requires some pretty significant utility relocation work, including City of Bethlehem's water main that goes directly under the bridge. And we've been working with them to try to get, I believe they have they just put out a request for proposals for engineering on that. So we're hoping to have all the utility relocation work done for that bridge next year and possibly start construction towards the tail end of next year.
So we settled a contract, we settled litigation with Krieger, correct? To take the bridges out. It states in here that we did so.
Correct.
And so where does that money go? Is that the 4 million that's sitting here and operating, or where does the money that we gain from the settlement go?
It's a discount on future spending.
Is that
So we
how it
just
was
don't,
agreed? You know.
it's just a discount on future spending. We pulled it out of the project. It's 4 million less we have to pay them or whatever the amount was. Yeah.
We got a super saver card we swiped.
Well, let me tell you. I do have to say, before anybody has questions, Mike has been a champ in dealing with this, in dealing with Greg Kuklinski. It has been a bit of a nightmare. So let me ask you this. You're the Director of Public Works. Would you ever enter into a type of contract like this again? Or, because we're the cautionary tale, I understand that. But if you weren't here, you inherited this.
Yes.
So, is there any merit to a bundling type of project that you could create or that you could oversee, that you could control the contractor and all that good stuff?
I think the overall concept of bundling is good, and it can save some money in the long run, but you need to make sure that the contract is airtight, which is something that we really was a major issue on the P3. And it was kind of modeled after the state's own P3 program. And they have a lot of different resources available to them in terms of their own internal staff that the county did not have. So, trying to model the state's P3 program, it's not going to be successful.
Plus, and if you correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like the utilities were not taken into account on the original contract, which is because it just sort of fell in the gap. and the money or the cost of all that utility removal wasn't considered, correct?
That's correct.
So that really led to all the snafus that we faced.
Well, usually, if you get an unbelievable cost estimate, it's usually unbelievable. And as Steve would relate with bases, I think this was a case where maybe not all the bases were touched when the contract was put together. Plus, there's areas where the P3 was great if revenue was coming in with the state. It didn't, at this level, it was iffy. But let me just say, the bridges in general, Mike, as you know, the county, Northampton County, now, for years you could get away with a bridge here and there that sort of, but the traffic now, and people have figured out the shortcuts. I mean, our east-west passage, if you will, in Northampton County is traditionally Route 22. And so north-south isn't as bad, but but east-west is crazy. And if you drive through towns now, at especially rush hours, people have found roads here, there, that when I was younger, it used to be, I know this way, I can go out by Hanover and come up here. Now, forget it, you're gonna see a line of cars. And so some of these bridges, which didn't get a lot of traffic, now have become very heavily traveled bridges. So I could see how it's important, like whatever you need, I know, and funding is always, it's all about funding, but bridges, our bridges now are probably a lot more, I mean, there's some bridges that are still out of the way bridges, but some of them that I used to think of out of the way aren't out of the way anymore. I mean, they're getting used probably more than they imagined they would be used. I even see the tractor trailers. If you want to have an eye-opening experience, watch some of the bridges that aren't rated for the weight, and especially at night, and some of these guys are flying over these bridges, like, oh no. But, so, yeah, you got a big job in front of you there to keep up with all of that. That's all.
Any other questions on P3? Last is Public Works cost allocation. Any questions, or can we move on? Okay, moving into capital projects on page 177. And I believe it's 196 in the blue.
Oh, these are always fun.
Should we jump right into the actual improvement page? Or do we need anything on 196? Any questions?
I'm waiting for the individual ones. I always love the specific bond issues and.
Okay, let's move into 178 and 179. The actual projects themselves. I guess my first question would be under any of the improvements in the budget changes, is that because we're just spending down what has already been allocated for these projects, or?
Some of them are projects that are in the existing budget, which we either haven't completed or haven't started work yet, so they're rolling forward a year. But there is also some new projects that are added as well.
So it seems like the jail are all existing projects, correct?
No, so the tier renovations, that's the existing project that's currently going on to renovate the D tier. But the concrete ramp widening is new, the juvenile unit renovations is new, as well as the surveillance system.
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Juvenile justice is also doing something else, but you're not part of it. Is that being done by somebody else? They were doing something in their hub? Didn't we have money allocated? It's not here?
Part of those are the projects you approved through the, what is the company that does the Medisys?
JCI.
JCI, through the JCI contract.
Thank Thanks for reminding me of that.
Any other questions on this?
What exactly are you doing for 50,000, Mike?
At Juvenile Justice Center,
Yeah.
that's allocated for drainage repairs in the gymnasium.
In the where?
The gymnasium.
I have a question on parking deck renovations, 750,000. Seems like we're always fixing that parking deck. What are the plans for that?
So the intentions with that is to resurface the deck. We have a lot of areas where water's leaking through the joints, and it's also to address some just minor structural repairs throughout the deck.
How old is that structure?
Hartsel, right?
Yeah, it's about 40, 50 years old.
78?
Probably somewhere in that area. That maybe goes back to Bechtel.
That was a good year.
Oh, well, that was a long time ago.
Any other questions on either of these two pages? Yes, no?
On the Graysdale ones, the ARP capital improvements, is that the daycare, 200,000?
Yes, as well as I believe that was the electrical upgrades, the nursing stations. Those were the projects that were included under the ARP.
Okay, so it's budgeted for 800, this year we're projecting 200 and next year 800. So that was $1 million that we budgeted then, right?
Yes.
Between the two, okay.
What, Mike, some of these things are being, have been done, or are they being done with the Graysdale that you're just talking about? Or any of these things being done at all? Or is this part of next year's, what you plan on doing at Graysdale?
Well, the roof repair, that's a completely new request. The bathroom project, that was already in the budget, and that's just rolling forward.
Okay.
The water tower, that work has been largely completed. I'm showing it as rolling just in case there was any expenses that came in like right at the end of the year.
Okay, so there's only one new addition to this.
At Graysdale, yes.
Okay, and all the blacktopping and all that's been done?
Yes.
No other surprises?
No, sir.
And are we hearing anything from them about room status? And if we do, maybe dropping it down? Have you heard anything from them about that?
It's not a discussion I'm involved with.
Okay, all right.
Question.
Go ahead, Ron.
Are you finished, Kerry?
Yeah, I am now.
Okay. Yeah, the ARP capital improvements and the 800,000 that was mentioned, I'm guessing that's the daycare center. And I guess, is this the money that has to be spent, Steve, by 2024 or by the end of 2023? Or there's a timer on this money, right? Or not?
So, from a reporting standpoint, there is a time on the money.
Okay.
Now, the county has been very conservative about taking revenue losses. So the question becomes, because we did lose revenue during COVID.
Yeah.
The question becomes, if we can't spend the money, yet it's allocated for projects through a county resolution, do we have to give it back to the federal government? And the answer to that is no, because we're taking it as revenue loss. And then that way we hold on to it. It will stay allocated for the projects. We can roll it as per normal and finish those projects out, regardless of the timetable, if we have supply chain issues, whatever the case may be.
So I guess then the question, I don't know, you, Mike, or both, how are we doing in terms of what's our projection with this daycare center?
That's
That's Mike. Thank you, Steve. As long as we've allocated it, we're safe. There you go. Yeah.
The architect just sent me the final plan set for review last week. And once that's looked over, good to go, it'll be put out to bid.
Oh, okay. So you got the plan, you're getting the plan review, and then we're going out with it.
Yeah, there'll probably be some minor revisions based on
Yeah.
that review, but it'll go out to bid very shortly.
Okay, so it does sound like we'll probably hear something next year in terms of it, the bid will go out next year, and then we'll probably be getting more information on
Absolutely,
where
yes.
we're at. Thank you.
What's the timeline for completion, estimated based on the plans that you have today?
For the daycare, I'd say around the summertime, it should be completed.
Summer '23.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions under overall capital projects?
The Parks barn, are you gonna get that done? Barn renovation? I know
That's-
We budgeted 690 this year, and there's nothing, there's no rollover, that's,
I believe we had funding in OSI County Parks set aside to complete that project as well, on top of the existing funding from the capital improvements org.
yeah, we had budgeted 690, 700 this year, and I was wondering if it was gonna be done, because there was nothing projected for '23. But you said that we've moved that line item? I'm in the white book on 179, if that helps. It's under Parks.
Yep.
Barn renovation for 2022, we budgeted 690,700.
Oh,
And
okay,
there's
so that's,
nothing for '23, so my question is, do we anticipate finishing that project, or are we just not funding it?
when the draft budget was put together back in June, we had assumed that the project would have started by now, but that's obviously not the case. So the projected expenditures for 2022 would be zero, and that 690, 700, that would just roll forward to 2023.
Okay, so do we need to amend that, Steve, to move that into 2023, or?
It would just roll like any normal budget item.
Okay, so how much, if any of that, have we spent? Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay.
We do a lot of rolling, don't we?
Steve has his head down, he's not gonna. He wants to know about your role.
We do a lot of rolling, don't we?
Well, I mean, I think it's a fair question, like, and again, it's come up time after time, so what do we need to do?
Did we bid it out?
3 times, I think we bid that project. The first came in way over budget. We reduced the scale on it, somehow came back more expensive. And then we bid it one more time and it still came in high, and we didn't get electrical bids. And then I think some of the work or some of the funding that we had planned to originally spend on that, we reallocated to other ongoing projects. So that kind of necessitated us to put a pause on that and bring in some more funding from the OSI County Parks for next year's budget.
May I piggyback, oh, I'm sorry, may I, may? And Steve, I know from the money end, but from him, this construction, though, one of the selling points, if you will, is that was crumbling. I mean, and it was in really bad shape. So I guess my question is, have we done whatever we need to at least stabilize the structure? Because remember when we moved out the mortician, the coroner, are we, it's in a sad, we saw the pictures, it's a sad state. Is it secured at this point? I mean.
Are we talking about the coroner's old, the actual house
barn,
itself?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, wait, I'm sorry, am I, you know what, yeah, the building we're talking about.
That, we haven't done any work to that since the coroner moved out.
Oh, okay, I thought that was gonna be part of this, but, I guess I'm mistaken. Oh, the actual barn, all right. Is the barn secure?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I just want to know that the buildings we're talking about, and the others, you know, but when we're talking about some of these things, especially like the older buildings, that we're at least secure and with that and with the barn.
Sure.
Okay, that's all. I think, Madam Chairman, at some meeting down the road, Finance Committee, I think it would be good for us to refresh with the Director of Fiscal Affairs, like our budgeting process and whatnot. Just, well, just in general, Steve, I mean, it's not a gotcha thing. It's just, so some of these questions that come up, I think it's just like how and why certain things happen the way they do. That's all. Just a suggestion. She's chair of it, so she may say, hell no, I don't know. That's all.
What further use are we going to, is the barn going to be for us? What are we going to do with it?
At this point in time, we're using it as just a break room area for our park staff. We don't have any further plans at this point in time.
Because I was curious for that amount of money that, that's a lot of money for a break room.
Well, we're talking about two separate things. The old, like the actual farmhouse that the coroner was operating out of.
Right.
That's an entirely separate thing. We were looking to construct an entirely new maintenance facility for our parks department out. It would be located behind that building. I believe it was like a six bay garage type of structure, like a pole
So that's
barn.
what the 690 is for.
A part of it, yes.
That's
where
something
I
we
was
can address at
confused.
a future capital project, like the buildings out there and the whole project, where we're at and what we plan to do.
Okay.
I guess my only question about it isn't the actual project, but if you say you have a project expenditure that's that amount of money, and then you have a blank space, and you don't tell us where it's going, like, I agree, there needs to be some mechanism for showing us or redirecting us, or some budget amendment. So if we have the budget amendment, then tell us where it is, and that's why I believe Mr. Cusick's asking, do we need to? Because I don't understand that it just didn't evaporate and it goes somewhere and we need to account for it. Or it's not grant funded money, it's our money, correct?
Correct.
And so where is the money, Steve? Where does it go?
It would just roll forward.
But so then again, do we need to amend this?
No.
I mean.
Capital is done differently. So with capital, it is a capital plan. It's laid out in the administrative code. And when you have your capital plan, you plan it out for a certain number of years. Now, if projects go in over and under budget, depending on the situation, there are times we come to county council with budget amendments to move money from one project to another because we're over budget someplace, under budget another place. And this project had been on the books. It's a dead project a long time. We've tried to revive it. We have to do something there. So there needs to be something done there. But what that something is not very clear right now based on the needs for the park, shoring up the house, the barn that's behind it, and, do they need a space that's just for the park folks there? Do we tear it down and put up an entryway to the park? Is there another pavilion that maybe can be built there? I don't know. But that's why that money is there right now. But whenever we take money from there and move it within the capital plan, it does come before county council. And it's either moved via budget amendment, it's always moved by budget amendment.
So then what you're saying, if I understand you, is that you're leaving $1,075,000 in this park's cell, and then when you need to expend it in any of these three projects, you'll let us know. But it's
Yeah,
just gonna sit
come
in
to
a
council.
generic parks fund.
Yes.
Thank you. It's just,
Can I have Steve,
I don't
would
live
you
this
like us to
every
go
day.
back to the 5-year plan?
No.
I'm just,
Thank
I mean,
you.
the reason being that.
I drafted the new
You know
plan,
why.
and I don't ever want to see a 5-year plan again.
Not that anybody ever followed it.
Okay, can we move on, sorry, to the 2013 bond issue projects? Which we may have already discussed, but
Oh, didn't we? Oh, we jumped? Yeah, we did. Okay.
2013 bond. I'm sorry, did you have any extra questions on the capital projects? Did you want me to go back? I thought we beat it to death.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's move on to the new one, 2013.
10 years ago. But
I love
the generator, what's the status of that project? I see we're funding 272,500.
Yeah, so that's, the generator project covers the generator replacement at Graysdale as well as Juvie. It's all incorporated in the same contract. The equipment's been ordered for many, many, many months. It's scheduled to come in early 2023, I believe.
Wow, it'll be 10 years? That's incredible.
So will we, if it is 10 years, will this money be completed and expended by the end, or?
I'm expecting it to all be expended next year.
Any other questions? No. 2019 bond issue? I'm sorry, do you want to go back?
No, that's okay. I see what it is. I'm fine. We're on now.
Are we done with the forensic center?
Yes.
I just was curious. I was looking for it. The Human Services Facility, 2022, 10,000, 23, 25,000. Is that mean 15 new, Steve, and 10 is rolled? On page 181, I think it's the white book.
The white book.
Yeah, Human Services Facility.
Well, there's really no new money in this org. It's already existing. It's just, we were projected to spend 10,000 this year and 25,000 next year.
Of the 69.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes I just need to get it clear in my head, which can take a while.
So is the generator on this and the 2013 the same?
Yes, there wasn't enough funding
Sorry.
in the 2013 org to complete that project, so this funds the remaining
The
balance.
remainder.
Yep.
Any other questions? On the Graysdale specific improvements, are they listed elsewhere? Let's see. Or it's just one big lump of whatever Graysdale needs?
Yeah, that's not allocated to anything specific at this point in time.
Any other questions?
The only question that would come up now and then, guys, thank you for your patience, and Mike, do a good job. Any of these projects, like, any concerns you see on the horizon that you may need to come to us for above and beyond?
Nothing comes to mind.
Okay, well, just, it's not a hand on the Bible kind of thing. It's just, budget time's a good time to ask if we should be on the lookout on the horizon. There could be this or that, but glad to hear that you don't see anything right now. That's good news.
Is there anything pressing that we'll need to meet in December, or we're fine till January?
I don't see a need to have a capital projects meeting in December.
Okay, I was checking what you'd find out, okay.
2021 GISA projects? Anything specific, or? I guess we'll review them as they come up, correct?
Well, this is the Johnson Controls project
Oh,
that's
okay,
currently.
all of this, all of the money, and this is the three areas?
Correct, yes.
Council's approved all of that.
Yeah, we know. I just. How long is that contract?
The actual construction will be done early next year. And the financing was, what,
15, I think.
I believe it's 15 years.
Yeah, we've been with them, Johnson Controls, for a long time.
Any other questions regarding this? The capital improvements in plan, I can't even say it anymore. Page 183. Capital improvements plan.
Steve, didn't we just do a refresh? Or are we in the process of doing one? We were waiting for something.
So this is actually the cost of the refresh for years to come. So we have a replacement cycle for general computers. We have a hardware and switch refresh. And every time we bid them out, even though council approves them in the budget, because it's a contract over $100,000, we bring it to county council for your approval and show you the bid process and all that other stuff.
This is just gonna take us to 25.
Yeah, this is just the projection through 25, based on our best knowledge and what we know and the useful life for all the materials we buy that under government accounting standards becomes a capital asset.
And did we do a refresh that we're waiting to 25 for the Juvenile Justice Center?
Refresh what?
Because you're looking at here, and the originated date for that is what, 2025? Is that a did we do something down there beforehand?
The juvenile airlock
Juvenile,
replacement?
yeah.
I believe that is, Mike, do you know what that project is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you had 24 and 25.
So he's talking about, you're talking about the 150, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's not,
Yeah, that's just a projected project that we think might need to be done sometime in the near future. So I'm just budgeting $150,000 2 years from now to potentially address that project.
And when's the last time we put a boiler in that particular place that we're looking at?
Oh, they have a boiler currently. This is just to install a redundant boiler. We actually took one of the boilers from Human Services that JCI replaced as part of that Giza project.
Yeah.
We felt that it could be serviceable as just a backup boiler at Juvenile, so we're storing it currently, and that 50,000 would just be the cost to have a contractor come in, hook it up so that we do have redundancy at the Juvenile facility.
That's kind of smart to make sure, you got a nice little backup plan. Okay. It's cheaper to do it that way than buy a new one. All right, good idea.
So, any other questions? This is just a plan. This is the directions that we're gonna go. Anything else? Thank you, Mike, for everything. Does council have any other questions regarding the budget at this time that you need to ask? Anything that's left over, anything that you forgot while we have Mr. Barron still sitting here with us? Is there anything?
No, I'll just repeat what I said at the beginning of the meeting then. Would it be possible for us to get the Q3 unaudited sometime in the next few days?
I missed that part of the beginning of the meeting, but I
Okay.
will get it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If we have any other questions, I guess we can direct them to you. Just send them directly. Okay, with that, we can adjourn. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, I guess I should say prior to adjourn, budget amendments are due to Linda on the 18th, which is next Friday,
Also, the budget amendment meeting is on the 29th.
at 4:30, correct?
4:30.
Thank you. Now we can adjourn.
Since I won't be seeing you, are you doing any playoff games?
I did one last week.
Yeah.
I don't have anything on the schedule, but I am state certified.
I gotta ask you a question. With Sonny Sasso out